mode. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar, QMS in the Cloud. My name is Maria Rickardsson, and I'm the host of this meeting. We have two speakers today. It's Robert Ginsberg from Synergos and Daniel Translater from ARCS. The meeting is scheduled for about 1 hour. We will have 45 minutes presentation and demo, and then 15 minutes for questions. So let's get started, and I hand over to our first speaker, Robert Ginsberg.
Thank you, Maria. Good afternoon. Stockholm calling. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our webinar. A quality management system is the basis for safe design of medical devices that can cause serious injuries or death of people. This is why there is so much emphasis on quality management systems in the regulatory requirements for medical device manufacturers. This is a very short webinar on a very large topic, so bear with me if we will not have time to further elaborate on the topics in the presentation. We at Synergos will of course be glad to continue the dialogue with you on quality management systems issues and other topics related to that. We will like also welcome Daniel Translator from ART to present and answer questions about the CoSign system. Before we start, there will be time for questions after the presentation. You can use the questions tool at any time to enter your questions. If you do that along the presentation, that will give us a little time to digest them a little bit. My name is Robert Ginsberg. I've been in the medical device area for a while. I have a privilege of implementing software-oriented quality management systems and processes and combine them with lean methods at the same time. And I see that good IT infrastructure can be a real enabler both for quality and productivity. Now I hand over to Daniel.
Hello, how are you? Thank you, Robert.
Sorry for that. Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Daniel Translater. I'm sales manager at ARX. As you can see, Algorithmic Research is a global provider of digital signature solutions. So we work in many different verticals. One of the most important ones is for us is life sciences, medical devices, and pharmacology. We have been in the business over 25 years. Everything that has to do with security as standards in digital signature applications. And this is why ARX helps business secure and scale their business with digital signatures with proper control required by legislation, regulatory orders, and industry best practices. One second. Here you can see some of the clients that are working with us today. Some names I believe that they are known to you. We have actually thousands of FDA regulated organizations that use CoSign today. We're working with 8 of the top 10 pharma companies. We have 25% of the top medical devices companies, 7 of the top 10 CROs. And this is just an example of the different kind of organizations that can use CoSign for digital signatures.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm going to say some words about Synergos. We are fully specialized on medical devices. We are a consulting business, and we work with reimbursement, quality assurance, and regulatory area. We are consultants in specific expert areas, for example, software or biocompatibility. We provide also management services like interim management or project management in this area. And we also provide courses and conferences in all these areas. We are also a truly global medtech company, multi-language, multicultural. So, let's start with today's topic. Cloud services are today widely spread, and most of us use them in several ways. We have Hotmail, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on. But we also have a different kind of cloud services that are more closer to our core business. And well, they are not in the clouds, they are rather in some kind of basement of some large facility. The cloud services are changing the IT landscape in a dramatic way. We are meeting a lot of standardization in this area. Companies do less and less by themselves, and it is difficult to compete on the pricing offered by cloud services because of the large price drop and the scalability that they provide. On the other hand, you might lose the ability to fully customize the tool you use, and we need to be aware of that. For smaller companies, there is a number of parameters to consider when deciding on a proper infrastructure solution. Price and scalability is probably high up on the list of those. Reliability and accessibility are also important. It has to be considered when you choose different services. And we need to remember that small companies grow, and it's not always easy to predict the growth. How fast will the small company become a mid-sized company? We also need to think of other issues. We need to consider security. Can we live with the limitations of a cloud service? And is the provider reliable and stable enough? We work mostly with Microsoft products. There are alternatives, of course. And it's important for me to state that we do not resell SharePoint or CoSign, so we are fully independent. But we have most hands-on experience from these tools, and this is why we talk about them today. From a quality management perspective, the most interesting service is SharePoint. For now, it is 2010, quite soon 2012. And there is an obvious strategy from Microsoft to evolve this service to the state of the art. If we look at the SharePoint pricing, you see something very interesting. It starts with one license, and it costs a little bit €4 a month and user. And if you go from 1 user to 100 users, it is still a little bit less than €4 a month and user. So you can really scale up when the company is growing. And I think and believe that this is a very interesting price structure for companies up to 200 employees. You can, of course, combine this service with Office, Exchange, and so on. And SharePoint contains a lot, and we can only touch the subject very roughly today. It is an intranet. You can see it as an extension of Microsoft Word, Office, Excel, PowerPoint, and so on. It provides also a data storage. And it has process support in different ways. You can create different lists. You can create forms to support your processes. You have also collaboration support. And there is a database in the background which makes it easy to parameterize your company data. And I will touch the subject a little bit more in next presentations. When we're thinking about implementing a quality management system, we need some functionality. We need to store a document somewhere. We need lists for record keeping. We need forms for entering our data, for example, complaints. We can get use of having workflows that the process that we have can be supported by a predefined workflow that we execute. Example of this kind of workflow can be document review or document approval. And of course we need digital signatures, so we don't have to print out things on paper to get the legal view of it covered. If we look a little bit closer on document libraries for our documents and also records, we need to be able to manage permissions, that different users can do different things with them. We need to have version management, so we can create a trace how things has been changed along the road. We need also have a way of distributing new versions of documents in a controlled way. Workflows can in different ways support our processes. And the documents have to be signed. When we move from paper-based approach to digital or electronic approach, we get rid of some tricky issues when we enter things by hand. And the example on the left side of the screen is almost from real life. Data entered by hand or in free text is very difficult to analyze and validate that it's appropriate to our validation rules. I think a date format is a good example of it. Other examples of that can be different fields in a complaints form or different fields in a change request form that can be predefined and assured that the user doesn't enter wrong data. In a quality management system, we need to have record keeping of different kinds. We have change requests, we have complaints, we have COPPA issues, and similar. And the paper-based system makes things more error-prone. It's very easy to forget a form on someone's desk. Records might be missing, and it's a lot of burden put to really keep track of the issues. That can be automated in a digital environment. What is in the Microsoft suite? There is a tool that maybe not many of you has really found, but in the Office suite we have a tool called InfoPath. The InfoPath is a tool for building forms, and you can replace paper-based forms with InfoPath forms. And in this picture you can see when we have taken a more paper-based form when you enter data by hand and made it electronic, and you enter the data through a web browser, for example Internet Explorer. And of course a tricky thing, having things in a digital way, is the need of signing. And for companies working with American market, this is a really tricky thing to solve if you don't have a signature system which is Part 11 compliant. The CoSign system which Daniel will talk more about, is based on private key infrastructure, PKI. I think most of you has used this structure for your banking business. It's a very well-established, well-known infrastructure. Still, you as a company need to make a validation of it, create a framework of routines and forms around it. Now a little bit more about CoSign. So I give a presentation to Daniel again.
Hello to everyone. So basically, just as Robert said, this is quite something very important. CoSign, what enables the company that's using it is to maintain the identity of the signer, the intent of the signer, and the integrity of the signer. This is one of the most important aspects. And I'm going to make it quite easy, and I won't go too far into it. But if you can see here the architecture of the solution, you see that CoSign is a centralized approach for a digital signature. It's actually a very easy plug-and-play solution where we do have, and we do see very important aspects, everything that has to do with security. And that's why we have a repository of the private keys inside the appliance, and there only the user itself is the only one who can go in and make the use of his own private key. So this is actually a very important aspect. We do have also a way to synchronize with Active Directory so that the management of the solution is in a centralized way. And as you can see here in the diagram, a organization may sign from their desktops or via different web services, for example, SharePoint, as Robert just exposed to you. Here you can see some of the applications that we support. So definitely we support all the Office applications and InfoPath into the SharePoint applications and other applications that people can sign documents on it, PDF, and Robert will give you a live demo in a few minutes. So you can take, again, the controls, Robert.
Okay. Thank you. We, of course, need to analyze our security risks and take proper measures depending on the company. Okay. Depending on your situation, maybe you need to do different things. In this regulated environment, the risks, the risk control measures and trade-offs were supposed to be planned, executed, and documented as a part of validation documentation. This applies to systems that support regulated processes. Looking at the infrastructure, if you're a small company, you can choose a really simple approach. You access your quality management system via the web. You enter your credentials and you log in. And this is the simplest out-of-the-box solution when we implement SharePoint hosted by Microsoft. Some of you, or maybe when you grow in size, maybe you implement a firewall. You maybe implement single sign-on, which means that you only have to log in once to your system, and you can reconfigure the SharePoint to act behind the firewall. And of course, another additional step is that you host SharePoint on your own servers. To do that, you're probably quite a big company. Here are some acronyms to keep in mind. The tough environment to be in is US, with an FDA having the Part 11 as a checklist for how this kind of system has to be treated. There is an AMI report called Tier 36 that very well describes how this kind of systems have to be validated. This report is now translated to more broad scope, including 3rd and 485. The name of this will be 80002-2. The evidence of a validation has to be documented. Both notified bodies and FDA will probably look for this documentation. So now, the hands-on demo. I have an agreement with one of the customers that we can, to some extent, show their installation without getting into the details of their product. So I'm going to show you an installation at Antred, which is a Stockholm-based company. If you go into the intranet of Antred, you see this view. And with SharePoint, you can build different kinds of web part to support your work. If we start with a quality management system, if I go into that, I get all the operating procedures and work instructions needed in a quality management system. There is, of course, a lot of more information than you see here. You can tailorize what kind of information you want to see when you access your quality management system documentation. One important bit in this is the permissions, and you need to be able to set permissions, who is allowed to do what with the documents. I made a wrong click here, sorry for that. And if I go to the permissions settings, I can really pinpoint what can be done with the documents, who has full control, who is only the reader, and so on. You can do it down to the file level, but it doesn't really make sense in the most cases. Another very useful thing is that you can add your own data and customize what data goes with the documents. One example of this custom-made data is the document type. In this system, we have standard operating procedure as one document type. Another document type is work instruction. Some of the data is provided by the system. One is that you, by our automaticity, get the unique document ID for all the documents and records that you put into the system, without having some kind of list where you pick the IDs from. So this is one example of a very useful tool to be in the compliance without even having to bother about it. Another thing, which is a broader topic, is with all this metadata, we move away from a static folder structure and can, by dynamic filtering, filter out which information you need depending on what your task is. From the regulatory perspective, it is really important that you can track all the changes. So in SharePoint you have a configuration management system, and you can trace back to all the old versions of the documents. You can also keep track of what is published and what is in draft form. The published things or the published documents and the versions of them, this is what the user of a document sees. Having this possibility in the system makes your work with a quality management system documentation very easy. You can have one version that is published, you work on additions, revisions to it, and no consumer of a document will see the draft versions. The term for it in SharePoint is called content approval. And I think I go to the test folder so I don't do too many things with the current documentation. Okay, I will come back to those documents. I prepared two test documents to be signed. What I would like to switch to is the CoSign Cloud, which is very useful for small companies, maybe 10, 15, 20 people, that you have a central administration of the signers, and you can renew their passwords. When they quit the company, you can kick them out from the system, and of course you can add new signers. So you have a web-based administration of all the signers that are allowed to sign the documents. So here we need to, of course, set up persons that will sign these documents. So let's sign a document. This is a Word document where there are prepared fields for signing. This is reworked traditional form or format when we have signed by ink. We have removed some stuff and added CoSign fields for signing. I right-click and assign the document. I enter the reason and enter my title. And then assign the document. Afterwards, I save it and I close it. And I check it in with a comment. In some cases, maybe the Word document is not the best way of keeping your information. It might be a record. For obvious reasons, there might be a need for having a PDF file. So I can open a PDF file. And it looks almost the same, but now we have a PDF file, and there is very similar field for signing a PDF. You use a software called OmniSign. I double click on the field. I get the same dialog with reason and title. And assign my PDF. Then I save it. And I close it. And here I have my signed documents. Those can also be validated by everyone without having the license of a CoSign. So I can take this document, I can email it, and the receiver of it can check if this is a valid document. This is a very lot of functionality. I just showed you a very, very brief part of it regarding documents. I can briefly also touch on the topic of lists. We can, for example, find a list of let me see what I can look for. I can look at the CAPA system, and here I have all the CAPA issues entered as info platforms. They get unique identities in the system, and even if your company is spread out over the whole world, the CAPA records are there, and you can track the progress for this activity. Of course, we can contribute to this work in several ways. We have user knowledge of SharePoint. We are not IT experts, but we know enough about SharePoint to do this kind of installations. We are well aware of Part 11 issues. We know how to write validation information to comply with Part 11. Another thing we can do is port your paper-based quality management system to SharePoint and CoSign. And we can, of course, elaborate on very similar services in this area. Before we jump into the Q&A part, I would like to ask Daniel if you have more comments and additions to what I have said.
Thank you, Robert. No, just to remind everybody that we have two models that it can be used CoSign solution. One is, as you saw, the cloud solution, and the other one is also on-premises solution. So other than that, I think we can go to the Q&A.
Okay. Thank you. Did you get any questions?
We have some, and if you have any question, please type them in. So I think we can wait a few minutes and give you all time to type in your questions.
Okay. I have quite fresh. The first question is, do you know what authorities and notified bodies think about this solution? I have a quite recent experience from 2 audits by notified bodies. They wanted to see the validation information. Seeing that, they were completely confident with the solution. In this is also that the big issue is not the systems, the big issue is how you treat them and how you validate them.
So we've got a questions that sounds, what's FDA's response on this solution?
Yeah. I think there are 2 parts in it. The one is about the, I'm not really sure which part of it is you're addressing. I see at least 2 parts. One is the usage of SharePoint, one is having them at Microsoft, and the third one is if the signing system is compliant with Part 11. I cannot say that I have had completely this kind of setup reviewed by FDA. This kind of SharePoint solution at Microsoft hasn't been out for such a long time. What I've seen though is the crucial thing is to have a solid validation information. There is no real difference between having this kind of system hosted by Microsoft or hosted to a company in the neighborhood or hosted in your environment. It is back to the question, do you have a proper validation of it? Maybe Daniel can comment on the Part 11 part and the signatures. Are you with me, Daniel?
Yeah, well, we do have many organizations that have undergone their verification and validation. By surprise, each company does by themselves, and we do comply with what's necessary.
Okay. Thank you. We're looking for the next question.
It's a question for Daniel too. Does ARX have a solution for digitally sign of web forms, not documents?
Yes. What forms? Maria, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Does ARX have a solution to digitally sign web form, not document? I think if you have your information on...
Yes, we can sign. Yes, you can find information, and yes, we can sign web forms.
Can you explain further how it works for web forms? Is there a difference between Word documents?
No, basically it depends on what kind of web form it's being used. So, but mainly all of the scenarios are very similar to what you have seen here. So you can write to me an email and I'll send you more information. You can enter our website and you can see there more information about it.
Okay, I have another question on, I hope I understand it correctly. The question is, do you have an issue that the integrity of paper documents should be confirmed with digital signatures? No, I cannot really. Could you elaborate on that? Can you understand that? I'm not fully sorry, but I cannot really understand what is in this question. If you could maybe clarify.
We have got a clarification there.
Huh?
He says, for example, we have a document called instruction evidence, where employees from the assembling gets an instruction of a preceptor, assembling expert, and after the instruction are signed it with their handwritten signature. After this, the sheet of paper will be scanned and confirmed from other employee with his or her digital signature. So I guess the question is if you need the paper signature as well, or if this digital signature can remove the paper.
When you I'm not sure. I think this is maybe a longer question, and Carl could email us to really elaborate on it. If I understand it correctly, or try to sort this out, you can have a paper that is signed, and then you can scan the document. Then you have an electronic signature, as it's called. It's weaker than a digital signature, but it's still acceptable from most authorities. Digital signatures have higher legal value. And of course you can scan a paper and add on with a digital signature to make the legal part more firm. If this is not a question, answer enough, please contact us.
We had a follow-up question for Daniel regarding this digital signatures on web form. And the web form that was asked for is InfoPass form in the web browser.
Well, thank you, Maria.
In the web browser.
Thank you, Maria. So, yeah, CoSign, what you saw here was an example where the CoSign is used without a SharePoint connector that ARX developed. If the connector is also used, so you may sign also inside SharePoint, including InfoPath, lists, and also PDF, Word, Excel, everything from the web.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, this is a question for Daniel.
Yeah, we have another question for you, Daniel. How much does the CoSign licenses cost?
We have different solutions. The cloud solution goes on monthly payment or yearly payment. Depends also if you're looking for a solution with SharePoint or without SharePoint. $15 for the basic one and $20 monthly for the with the SharePoint add-on. And again, as I said, we also have solutions for with the with CoSign on premises, and that's if you are interested, you can contact us and we can give you more information about it.
I would like to add on to the question, what's FDA response to this solution? I would really like to emphasize the need of that your processes take care of the tools. The tools by themselves will not give you compliance. You need to have your own procedure package around the solutions to make them legally binding. Then FDA will accept it because the infrastructure is widely accepted as a legally binding infrastructure. It's used all over in the banking systems. But it's not stronger than your ways of addressing the vetting of users, how you validate the system. Without this information in place, you won't be in compliance. And please contact me if we need to elaborate this in more detail. Okay.
Any more questions out there?
I have one question here. Any experience of effort needed to maintenance this system? And of course, it's difficult to answer. If you really leave it alone and build your quality management system, you create your structures, your forms, I would say this is very, very little. But I think what usually happens that you want to expand the usage of SharePoint, and this will be some kind of maintenance because you're improving and expanding the usage of it. Okay. I think we have covered.
We received another question. I think this is a question for Daniel too. And the question is, are there any planning to implement a timestamp functionality to CoSign appliance?
So thank you, Maria. So we do have timestamp functionality today supported by CoSign, a third party. We do not have a solution from ours, but if the company who needs it wants to buy from a third party timestamp, CoSign will work with it.
Okay, I think we run out of questions now. We will send you the material afterwards. Of course, some of the questions or bigger topics, feel free to contact us to discuss those. And thank you, Daniel, for your time today. And thank all participants for your time.
Thank you, Robert, and again, thank you for everybody.